Hey guys, we're here with Dan from the Footy Brains pod. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Will ready for another week of fantasy after a pretty big up week for my team last week. How did yours go?
Yeah, we made about 6,000 ranks, and my main team jumped 1,130 points there. So that's pretty good. Cleary captain and Karaz was quite handy there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
huge.
how'd you guys go?
Yeah, I scored about 1,080. Didn't captain Cleary, unfortunately. I'm sticking with May, I think, for the foreseeable future. Yes, he had probably one of the lowest scores of the big captains this week, but I think in the long run it'll probably pan out with May as the captain. But yeah, team went well. The only thing is I didn't have Kiraz, which he's going to be a lot more expensive this week to bring in. So
Yeah,
that'll be fun trying to juggle that.
definitely. But yeah, I mean, there's been a massive week. Probably the biggest news out of it is the Fafita standing down immediate, effective or whatever it is, indefinitely because of his ankle there. What are your thoughts on that Titans situation?
Yeah, it obviously hurts because Fafita. I mean, we were only talking about him as a must buy a couple of weeks ago before he was well not dropped from the team, but he had another hamstring injury I think at the time. So yeah, unfortunate for him. It's a shame because he would have been great value for fantasy coaches and obviously huge for the Titans. But it kind of means that potentially Cleese Haas has some value. I haven't really looked into it too much, at like Haas's stats in the back row, but yeah, definitely something I've got to have a look into to see how that'll affect the team. But I'm sure the Titans will probably suffer in the long run. Well, definitely this season.
Yeah, I do think that, and who knows? No one for Fafita, he probably could be gone for the season. Doesn't look
Yeah,
very interested in playing, but
yeah, they got smashed, didn't they? As well, their New South Wales, their Queensland Cup team. I think they
yeah, they
held to
did.
nil. Yeah, which is interesting.
But yeah, so King Togia played a good game on the weekend. With that break even of one, do you think he's solidified his spot and is he quite a good cash down option now or cash cow option?
Yeah, this is a really, really difficult one and one that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet just because Lockie Ilias was named amongst the reserves for the Dragons. It seems like an obvious like smash buy situation normally, but because the Dragons don't play around 12, they have the buy and the fact that Ilias is on the bench, I'm a little bit skeptical. I haven't really fallen either way, and I could be convinced both sides, right? Because he plays another game, scores another 40 odd score, or even another 50, and he makes another 40 to 50K pretty much off one score. But if Ilias comes straight back into the team next week or the week after, you're stuck with a guy that's worth around 300K that you can't really trade to anyone worthwhile at that point. So yeah, a really difficult one to make an educated guess on because he could be in the team or could not be in the team next week. And if you look at his base stats, he only averaged around 30 points in base as well because he had a few attacking stats there and some try assists and some and a line break as well. So it's a bit hard to judge. Doesn't have a lot of kick meters. Yeah, it could go either way. I'm really on the fence on this one.
Yeah, I do agree that. I think it comes with a risk there. Like I don't see why I wouldn't play out like because if he puts back to back 50s or 40s, he probably gets up to 350K. And if I need around 15 half when it comes to round 13, I can probably bring him in there to see if he holds that spot. But I would have been more confident if the Dragons won having to buy him than the Dragons losing.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm saying that he did have a pretty good game, and it looks like when he plays in the NRL, he plays pretty well. But for me, I'm going to give him one more week and see if he can go back to back because, I mean, without those two try assists and that line break, he probably gets to 30, and you're like, with a 30, or you're a bit more iffy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he can still make cash with a 30, but if with a 30, he's more likely to lose his spot, right? That I
Yeah.
think Flano was probably hoping he'd come in and have a big impact, which he did, to be fair. He was pretty solid out there. Like, you look at that, he only had two missed tackles, which when you bring in a rookie half, normally they're pretty well targeted. So, did get away with that. But yeah, it's really, really hard. I can understand people bringing him in just because of the cash element and like just being able to cash down a Mamazelis and, you know, get a gun like a Kiraz or a Garrick in this week and use that cash better. But yeah, really hard to see the long term of King Togia at the moment.
Yeah, there is definitely another cheaper player under 400K that I would be going with there. And yeah, but you talk about it, Aaron Clark. He played massive minutes again with that 69 there. James Fisher Harris is back this week, I believe.
Yep,
Yeah,
pretty
which
sure.
I do think it affects Aaron a little bit, but I think he has won that big minute role there, which with Peter Mamazoulis down, I think he is your next best hooker option. That if you don't already own him, you bring him in this week.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I'm just looking at the team now, and he's not back, Fisher Harris, this
Yeah,
week.
I didn't think he
Didn't even
was.
notice that. Yeah, so there
The
you go.
only,
So Aaron Clark, still a good option this week. Obviously, with Fisher Harris back, he'll probably lose. You'd imagine he'd lose some minutes, but in terms of his scoring, Clark seems to be a pretty solid player in this Warriors pack with the few players that they've lost. So I'd still lock him in. He's probably the next best hooker or most consistent hooker out of the options available at the moment. And I mean, they're both in the Warriors team, the best hookers at the moment,
yeah, I
being
know.
Wade Egan and Aaron Clark. So yeah, I don't think you'd go wrong with either of those two to replace
Yeah,
Mehmet Ellis.
he looks like a really good player at lock two. Like he has that average of 51 in his career there, which I mean that's where he's kind of priced at there. So
Yeah,
I think he's a no-brainer at the hooking position.
yeah, for sure.
Doesn't come with much risk there, and that dual position really helps out there. But another player that I think is the cash cow of the week, and I could almost go with over Aaron Clark is Riley Smith here. Put that 54 there. The six missed tackles the last 2 weeks does worry me a little bit, but he looks like he's solidified for close to 70 to 80 minutes there. Brandon Hands is on the emergencies this week, but do you think that Riley Smith is close to a must-have?
Or I definitely wouldn't say must have. He's another one that I'm really on the fence about as well because Brendan Hands is back in the team after recovering from a knee injury. So I don't think they want to keep playing Hopgood through the hooker position just to spell Riley Smith. And yes, he played nearly 80 minutes this week, but I don't think that he will be playing that longer term. I honestly think that Hands probably comes onto the bench here, plays that 14 role, and takes some minutes off of Smith. I don't hate it as a buy to just fill in for a hooker. Like if you need a hooker this week and you don't want to pay up for like an Aaron Clark or a Wade Egan or someone like that, and you just need to fill the position, I don't hate going Riley Smith because he'll still do fine this week. I don't think Brendan Hands will come straight into this team by any means, but long term, yeah, I still have very big question marks over Riley Smith at the moment. But I don't hate it as a short term option.
Yeah, I do see where you come from there. Low break even though, and yeah, it just depends if he probably could have been stinted with Dylan Walker on the bench the last couple of weeks. So but I think Hopgood's so much better throughout the middle of that. That's where it
Correct.
needs to
Yeah.
be played. And if Smith's not up to 80 minutes, I do think that Hands will come in. But it's probably you could maybe wait one more week to see if Hands does come in, what the rotation is like. But then he's 420k and he's still
Yeah.
buying it at 420k.
Yeah, exactly. It's similar to Togier as well. Like
Yeah,
if you don't get them this week, you're not really going to get them because they're going to price you out a little bit. So yeah, you're kind of assuming that risk. Really, it depends how confident you are, and I think it's just a personal decision based on your team and how much risk you want to take on at this point. Yeah,
yeah, it's a little bit on the Savala train now. He's way too expensive to
exactly.
bring in,
Yeah,
and you look at it like Riley Smith, 390k is pretty fair price there. But
yeah,
Dylan Lucas, a guy that I brought in this weekend, he's an absolute gun. Their record with Lucas and Ponga's record with Lucas is insane. But
yeah,
I think for me, he's the best replacement for Jacob Preston. Plays around 12 and 15, has that dual position there, won't play Origin, just an absolute workhorse. Do you think that he is the best replacement for Jacob Preston this week?
yeah. Pretty much, I'd do a straight trade from Preston to Lucas. Great buy coverage the Knights have, so I think it's a pretty much a no brainer. That trade, Lucas. You know what you're going to get out of him week in, week out. Obviously, the injury hurt a lot of fantasy coaches earlier in the year, but the effect that he has on this Knights team is, yeah, it's hard to put into words. They play so much better with him in the team because they can just rely on him, and we're getting a performance out of him. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the effect it has on Ponga as well is probably something we should highlight there because Ponga has probably bottomed out now, and he's also looking like a pretty good buy. The problem is with Origin coming up and Reece Walsh injured, it does mean that he might get selected and miss around 12 and 15 as well.
Yeah, which is probably the only thing. But I think when you got a player that's bottom out like that much and is Kalen Ponga, you can probably risk because like there's not many Origin players. We probably have Haas, Cleary, Terrell May pending selection.
Yep.
I don't really know who else maybe brought maybe a Tedesco there or a Yo, but there's not
Yeah.
as many Origin players as we usually have. And I do think that the Knights showed better form, and I think they will get over the Gold Coast Titans this week, and I think they'll get over them quite convincingly.
Yeah, I would say there couldn't be a better matchup for them, but the last time out they lost against the Titans, so
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes, especially with
yeah.
Campbell back this week.
But yeah, I think he's a very strong buy there.
Yeah,
Jacob Kraz again. I think he's a must buy almost with that 102. We said it was only a matter of time still till he started
exactly.
scoring tries. And look what happened when he did 14 tackle busters, crazy, and free offloads there. Do you think that you kind of break your team, not break your team up, but do you think that he is a must have in that wing fullback center position? Does play around all major buy rounds too.
Yeah, the buy coverage that he provides is just insurmountable. The only question mark becomes Origin, but I think they're likely to have some combination of To'o and Lomax, but Kiraz is there and a question mark as well because he was unreal in the air in Magic Round. He every ball that was put up near him, he was winning comfortably as well. Like it didn't look like he was going to miss it at all. So there is a question mark there. Whether he gets selected or not, that's up to Laurie Daly. But yeah, he's definitely an option. So it's not a definite on Kiraz, but I kind of agree that it's hard to get him. It's hard to get him in, right? 680K. It's quite a lot of money for a winger fullback center. It's almost keeper level when you're looking at the likes of your Tedesco's and your Edwards in the past, and even Campbell at the moment. Like he's at 780K as a winger fullback, and you'd love to have that in your team, but that's even more to get in. Do you have to break your team to get him in? I think if you're going to get him in, now's the time. If you plan on not getting him in, you're not going to get him in for a while, I think, because he's only going to go up and up from here.
Yeah, and I don't. I'm not confident he'll play Origin. I think he's very much deserves to, and he's good enough. But I mean, but you never really know. Like we've never seen Laurie Daly select an Origin team or
Yeah,
even
exactly.
coach that is. So he
Yeah.
could actually come out and kill us with selections there. But I mean,
Yeah.
you heard Spencer Lenu that is locked in Origin there. I don't know if you saw that report, but um, I think Karaz didn't help his cases. Like I think he helped his cases for Origin selection on the weekend. But it's kind of like if you don't care about Origin and you want a gun, Karaz is your man. He's going to make you
Yeah.
money. He's
Pretty
going to
much.
put
If
up
you're
decent
just,
scores there.
yeah, if you're not even thinking about Origin, you're just picking the best player available at their price. Kiraz is the for sure one to pick up. But yeah, I mean, Daly said he was going to pick it based on form. Arguably, Kiraz is probably in the best form returning from injury he's been in. So
Yeah.
hard to put a case against him.
Which I think if you're picking a form, this guy's got to come really close. Fletcher Sharp's
Exactly.
been incredible. I don't think he's in the Origin picture, but I do think he is a very good buy this week. At again, 700K is a little bit expensive, but God, he's a good tackler, isn't he? Just 30 tackles for 2 misses week in and week out. With those
Yeah.
attacking stats there, do you think Fletcher is the best wing fullback you can go with over the next two major bye weeks?
Yeah, another great option for the buys. He won't play Origin, and yeah, he covers two positions. I think it's a pretty much no brainer. We called him as a buy last week, knowing that he had the best buy coverage, and he was coming into a bit of an easy run with the Rabbitohs, Titans, and then Parramatta. So yeah, he's still a buy at just under 700K. I think that averages him at about 50, and his average I think will sit at around 50 to 55, depending on the night's form. So yeah, still worth a buy.
Yeah,
Obviously, he's at his price, but
he
yeah,
probably doesn't make much money, but I think he just puts up those keeper wing fullback scores, and I don't think there's really many gun wing fullbacks going around this year. So
yeah, you could just say he's a keeper at this point, right? Like if you
yeah,
average 50 as a winger fullback, you're a keeper. Really, you're not really going to sell that at all.
yeah,
So you could say he's just a keeper. Like he'll
and
be have his ups and downs. He'll get a 60 here and like a 40 there, but he'll average out at around the 50 mark.
the good thing about Sharp is I'm sure everyone already has round 12 halves with Katoa's, Savala, Cleary if he doesn't make it for some reason, Fogarty. But I do think that if something goes down there, you just have him to pivot into that half position too, which is so handy there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've got him definitely as a better buy than Jaden Campbell. 780K, absolutely killed it at the start of the season. But I think the Titans aren't playing incredible. He just did his knee. I don't know there's not a high re-injury rate on a knee, but I'd give him personally a week, and they don't play round 12.
Yeah, he doesn't play around 12. It was actually syndesmosis injury, so he'll probably
Yeah,
still be a bit
high ankle.
slow to come back. Like it's the same kind of thing, right? He won't do a lot of kicking, I'd imagine, on that. He'll be pretty slow to come back. He could come out and score huge, to be honest. Like it's hard to tell with some of these players, especially guys like Jaden Campbell. They have huge weeks, but then they also have their down weeks. Um, probably one just to let go through. I think you're better off getting Sharp with the form that he's in. And they'll be head to head this week, so that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah. And without the kick meters, it's kind of like a Nico Hines buy. Like his base goes down so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he'll probably kick 200 this week, then go up to 300. And and maybe he could even lose goals, maybe, depending on.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go back to Brian Kelly as a goal kicker anytime soon after
Yeah.
watching that on the weekend.
But
But you could see him maybe give it to someone else. I just think his in-game kicking will probably be a bit diminished this week. But you're right. It'll build over the weeks and he'll get
yeah.
back to normal pretty quickly. It's just 780K. It's a bit steep at the moment.
It'd be really nice if they had Keanu Kinney there because he's very
Yeah.
exciting to watch. And on that team, he could be cracking.
He's seasoned, right? Kitty's gone for the year.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Yeah, that's rough, especially with De Groot. Yeah.
De Groot's not incredible at all, is he?
Yeah,
I wonder how many people fell for the De Groot trap.
Yeah, he's okay, but he was never going to be a huge fantasy prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe Tarpany's absolutely killed it this year. It's what he's been able to do. But I think he's looked a lot more consistent this year. Like he's got a lot more 60s and a lot less 30s and 40s there. And for me, I have Joe Tarpany as probably one of the best round 12 middles you can go, pending Haas and May selection in Origin, which I think they'll both be selected there. But do you think Joe Tarpany is a very good buy? And if so, are you willing to sell Corey Horsburgh to Joe Tarpany?
This week, yeah, that's a pretty good trade. I think even though Horsburgh is playing, the safety there in Tarpany is that he plays round 12, right? Because Horsburgh, we're predicting gets selected for Origin, just given his current form. He's been quite consistent. Most likely he gets a bench spot there. So yeah, you can't really look past Tarpany. He's always been like the buy to have in the mids during the Origin period, just because he's such a consistent scorer and doesn't play Origin. So yeah, love having him.
Historically, he does heat up a little bit through that Origin period there. Like as you can see, he has those massive scores there, and because I just think he gets bigger minutes. Like if they're missing Horsburgh, obviously they're going to need Joe Tarpany for bigger minutes there.
And also because they're playing teams that have lost all their Origin players as well. So yeah, he just chews up the meters through the middle, and has plenty of offloads as well doing it. So yeah, Tarpany's always been the best buy to have during Origin.
He's always been like a yo kind of, always a pod, but is always one of the best middles in the game.
Yeah, he's been a bit up and down. I've noticed over the last couple of seasons, like he's had his big games where he's gone 60, 70 plus, where he's played, close to 65, 70 minutes. But then he's also had those games where, he plays 40 odd minutes, has a bunch of missed tackles and maybe doesn't have as many offloads. Like that's kind of what you get, right? When you've got a player that offloads so much and you get so many points from offloading, when he has those games where teams can lock him down, like when you play the Storm and you can't get your arm free and you can't get an offload away, you just lose all those points. So it'll happen. It's always going to happen when you're relying on stats like offloads to get points, but I still think he's got a solid base with plenty of tackles and meters through the middle.
It's a bit like Haas relies on offloads for points.
Yeah, you can tell. Like Haas has games where he gets 90, and then he gets games where he scored like a 50 or whatever a couple of weeks ago as well. So yeah, it is what it is. You can't really predict those stats sometimes.
Yeah, but a guy that we've already spoken about a bit, but I still have a very good wing fullback option is Kalen Ponga. He's dropped a lot of cash, and the thing that stands out for me is that average at fullback with Dylan Lucas is 60, and without Dylan Lucas it is 49.3. So it's 10 points more. I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but they look like a better team and he looks like a better player there. If you don't already own Ponga, I don't know if you do, but would you be interested in bringing him in?
Yeah, I don't, but I'm like 90% sure I'm going to lock him in this week, Ponga. I need a bit of I would say he's a point of difference option, but he's quite highly owned at the moment. And I'm hoping that's from ghost teams. But like most people are avoiding him because of his run of 20s. But like you said, with Lucas, the Knights are a different team and Ponga's a different player. So I think at that price and the gun that Ponga is, even though I might miss him for Origin, you just can't look back when you're looking at a gun fullback that's at around 500K. It's too good to be true. So yeah, I think you're well within your rights to lock him in this week if you can.
Yeah, and the thing that stands out for me is we brought him last in 2023 at like 400 odd K. And he went nuclear. I think it's the same thing. Maybe he might not go as nuclear, but he started the season off incredible. And
Yeah. How much has he lost? It's like 200K over the
yeah,
last couple of weeks, right?
200K.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
he hasn't scored a try all season too.
Yeah, that's a crazy stat that he doesn't have a single try to his name. Yeah, he could go even higher. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think you kind of have to go for Ponga if you can. If you can afford it with the origin players you have in your team already, like say you only have, well, most people have May and Haas and Cleary, like you could probably afford to pick up a Ponga and just keep
yeah.
him in your emergencies or on your bench.
The only thing is, I was talking to Gordon Tallis. I saw him at a pub on the weekend, and he
Nice.
said, "Put your house on it that Kalen Ponga is the Origin fullback," which
Yeah.
I think we pretty much already knew. But if Gordon's saying that, surely that he's got like, surely of all people, Gordon Tallis has to know who's going to play Origin.
Yeah, I hope he has that connection with Slater to know that. But yeah, I think there's not really anyone else, right? The
Yeah,
only issue with well, the main thing we're hoping, right, if you do pick up Ponga, is that Walsh comes back and is fit for game two. Because if Ponga plays game one and Queensland lose, you'd be much more likely to have Ponga for game two in your team, right? Because yeah, I doubt he'll get selected for game two with Walsh back and fit, and
yeah.
fit is the main thing.
If Jai Gray didn't do his hammy, I don't know if he would have made it, but God, he would have been close. He has
Could be
played
close,
incredible
yeah.
this season.
Yeah, exactly. He would have been close, but I feel like they trust Ponga a lot more than,
Yeah.
Jai Gray is a newer player coming into the scene.
And the Broncos, they're in all sorts, and I think it was only a matter of time till this win came for Penrith. But
Yeah.
Selwyn Cobbo, he put up a good fantasy score, but I was watching the game and God, he was lazy. Just he was never there. Like that 40-20, he kind of just jogged. And that chip and chase to Isaac Tungo, he again just let Tungo take it. Yeah, so I do think Selwyn putting up good fantasy scores and at that price of 443K is probably a good buy. Doesn't play around 12 and 15, even if he doesn't make Origin, and will go back to the centre or wing spot, probably the wing spot when Walsh is back, which for me doesn't make him a buy. What do you think?
Yeah, we did touch on this last week and we kind of said let him go through to the keeper. But I think
Yeah,
if you went against our advice and bought him, you're cheering, but I wouldn't be looking to buy him anymore. I still don't think it's a huge score when you look at it. He had 10 tackle busts and over 200 meters, probably unsustainable for
yeah.
him at fullback. Um, yeah, you're cheering if you bought into him, but you're not really worried too much if you didn't. You're happy to let this one slide still.
And for me, it screams red flags if a winger can score 3 tries and score 44.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair.
Yeah, so I do think our fullback is going to score well, but they're not going to drop or they're not going to move Walsh out of position to
Yeah, just to
keep
put him at
Cobbo at
fullback.
fullback.
Yeah, exactly.
So if Walsh goes down for the season, then I could be very interested in getting him.
Could be, but until that happens, yeah, we'll wait and
Yeah.
see. Yeah,
Peter Mamazoulis, I think he's a sell. He's made money for us, done an incredible job at that hooking position. Unfortunate that the dislocated elbow. I think it is only 3 to 4 weeks though, maybe a little
yeah,
more. But yeah. Do you think he's a sell? He doesn't play round 12, so it's pretty much only 2 weeks as you would have taken in consideration already missing round 12 there. Where do you stand with Peter Mamazoulis?
yeah. He's pretty much a sell. Like he does have cash still to make. He's priced at around, like it says there, he's priced around 43, which I think is about right. Um, yes, he could still make another 50 to 100K, but you're better off selling him up to someone that you can play in round 12. I think at this point. Um, yeah, I don't think there's much more we need to talk on with this one. It's a pretty
Yeah,
comfortable sell, I think, for most people, especially this week when a lot of players are carrying or coaches are carrying Roosters players. Like I'm carrying 4 Roosters players going into this round. I don't think I can hold someone that's injured at all. So I think most people are going to be selling Mamazelis and pretty safe sell to someone that plays round 12.
yeah, and I think for me, just a no-brainer swap to Aaron
Yep.
Clark if I didn't already own him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you still have that cash lying around, like if you have about 150, 200K, yeah, makes
And
sense.
God, he's a hard watch with all those missed tackles there.
Yeah, you don't know whether he's going to get a 30 or a 50 most weeks. He's
Yeah,
had a pretty good run recently because he's just been getting bulk tackles through the middle, and that's been enough to cover for those missed tackles. But yeah, some weeks he just misses a lot more. When the Rabbitohs are in form and they're not defending as much, they're the weeks that Mamazelis suffers because he just doesn't make as many tackles, and the missed tackles really are
yeah.
highlighted in those kind of games. So, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get hurt by selling him. You can keep him, but it's not really worth holding someone injured through that round 12 bye.
Yeah, and now that Sandon Smith has a high break even now with that -2 there, where do you sit with him? He is on a bye this week. And personally, I think he's made his money. Like, I don't see him getting much further over 500K there. But, I mean, we said sell him, and he went out and scored that 75 with a sin bin there. So, yeah, what do you really think about Sandon Smith?
Oh, what a roller coaster Sandon Smith put coaches through over the
Oh, yeah.
last couple of weeks. Imagine if you were one of the guys that, sold him round 8 and were like, oh shit, I better get back on him, and bought him for round 9 and then he got a -2. That would have been really painful. But yeah, I mean, if you've still got Sandon Smith, he's a sell. Move
Yeah.
on to someone else at this point. Maybe downgrade to a Togia or a Smith short term. But I'd move him on to someone else at this point.
I think everyone has enough cash in the bank that you can use that trade to get up to a gun player.
Yeah, I
And
think
one
so.
player that doesn't get spoken about enough is Isaiah Katoa, who is a crack and half to bring in for Smith if you have that money left.
Yeah, Katoa's been huge. You're ahead of the curve in buying him. What, you bought him about a month ago now. So
Yeah, about that.
yeah, you've been like reaping the rewards of his scores over the last couple of weeks because he has a couple of 60s in there from memory. So
Yeah, I think he's gone back to back to back 60s, I believe. I think he got 47 the first week.
yeah, he had a pretty average game, I thought, against the Roosters as well, because they got beat. And
Yeah.
I didn't think he was he didn't do anything crazy good, but still managed a 67 last week. So yeah, look at his kick. I mean, 450 kick
Yeah.
meters. If he can smash that out a week, you're always going to have a good score. So yeah, get around him.
So I do think if you can find a way to bring in someone like a Fogarty or the Isaiah Katoas for the round 12 buy, that's a good thing there. Or
Yeah,
good
solid
trade.
pod as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Stafford Toa, he's now a sell, isn't he? Not
pretty
playing
much.
this week. And
Yeah.
does he get his spot back? The Tigers had a good win on the weekend. Doesn't play round 12, doesn't play round 15, and he probably has maybe a little bit more cash to make, but not a hell of a lot there. I think if you can sell him, you can probably bring him up to a gun, sell him.
Yeah, 520 is pretty good. Plenty of cash made from Toa. Like I said, plenty of Roosters that you're going to have to carry this week. So yeah, I think it's a safe sell. Moving on Toa, it's actually pretty good if you've got Toa and Mamazelis. I mean, I had both of them as well. That's an easy mill that you've just made, or 1.1 mil to spend on upgrading your team and in a bunch of other positions. Like I'm able to get Kiraz and Ponga because of that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would be able to go even higher, maybe a Sharp or even a Campbell if you're flush with cash as well.
But even you can go down to like a King Togia and bring in an absolute gun too.
Yeah, bring in two guns at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not many guns really going around now of Origin close, but
Yeah. Not
do
that
you
you
think
wouldn't have already anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any argument that Jacob Preston is a hold? He's been killing it all season, and I mean, wow, I mean, I think he put himself out of Origin. Well, obviously put himself out of Origin contention, but I think he would have been very, very close if he wasn't going to play Origin. And the thing is, too, he gets a 4 week suspension, which means it's pretty much 5 weeks with that buy in round 13 there.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I
So
think you don't hold anyone for 5 weeks, so
yeah,
trying to flick them.
mate, you said it yourself in
Yeah,
the intro to Preston. Yeah, it's too long. 780K as well. Like that's way too long. You could maybe convince me if he was a cheapie, like 280K or something like that, and he was going to come back and get
yeah.
30, 40 points and start making cash again, but not that much money being held up on my bench. Yeah.
Especially when you got someone like Dylan Lucas with such a good buy schedule and
Exactly.
who he's probably underpriced at like 710K. Arguably for Dylan, that's underpriced.
Yeah, I think he's probably priced around about right, Dylan. Like he'll probably go up and down
Yeah,
based on his scores between 700 to 800K. But yeah, it's still pretty cheap to get him in.
yeah. And he's got that center position there too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nafafu White, again, this has been a roller coaster. 30s in the 50s, 30s in the 60s. And do you still agree that he's a hold? They have a very good buy schedule there.
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer of a hold now. If you've held him this long, you
Yeah.
use him as a looper. Still got a low-ish break even, and will probably lose money. But or it could probably he'll kind of fluctuate up and down. But you can hold him to around 18 with no really mid or edges going around. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. You can hold him through the whole origin period, as you would with most of these Roosters players. Like if you've got, like me, I've got Toya, Nwangani Tuase, Savala, and Wong. Those four players, I'm probably going to hold through the whole origin period, just because of the buy rounds that they have. And when the Roosters have their buys, every other team is playing and all the origin players will be playing. So I think they're pretty safe holds until Origin is
Yeah.
done and dusted.
The only two players I'd be selling is probably Watson and Tedesco, who are the two Origin players. And
Yeah, any Origin plays in the Roosters, that'll hurt a lot, right? Because they miss round 12, 15, and 18, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. And then the Roosters have their bye in 14,
and 17.
14, yeah, 17, and
Yeah, 14.
yeah, 14, 17. Yeah, that's right. So they'll miss
Yeah.
a ton of games. I think I put the stat up in our cells a couple of weeks ago for Watson. Not a couple of weeks ago. I think it was only last week that he'll miss 6 of the next 10 games or
Yeah.
something like that. So it's not worth holding on to those kind of players.
Another thing to keep in mind for Origin is that this year Lindsay Collins probably won't play for Queensland, who has been a proven gun. So that's where another middle has to come in also.
Yeah, that's where He's just been taking on those
Yeah.
extra minutes through the middle. Do we have an outline of when Collins is back? Is he going to be
Right.
back mid bye rounds or?
Yeah, I think maybe 14 to 15, I'd like to say.
Okay, yeah, because that'll be interesting to see how that affects not only if he's selected again or if that affects White's minutes as well during that period if he doesn't play Origin.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to worry about that at the moment.
He's already made over 200K and you'd be laughing if you started with him.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw Jackson Purdue on, I think 1% are sold by players. And for me, I haven't decided if it's a good move or not. Break even to 34. Cowboys playing much better. They are playing Penrith, who, as I said, it's only a matter of time. And I do think they are somewhat back. Not as formidable as they used to be. But yeah, where do you sit with Purdue? He had an absolute stretch of games and gone one low game there. And the Cowboys are in such great form. Only thing about Purdue is doesn't play around 12. But I think, in my eyes, he is a hold definitely for this week.
Yeah, it makes sense to hold him this week. I personally think he's a sell at any point at this point in at the moment. Like as soon as you can upgrade him to someone that plays round 10, round 12, I think you do that. But with the Roosters on the bye and the amount of Roosters players coaches have, I think you may as well hold him this week.
Yeah. And then with
he still has the potential, like you said, he could go nuclear again, another 60 this week, and then we're having a different conversation next week. But I don't think there's any harm in holding him. I don't think there's any harm in selling him at this point, just because he's already made such a good amount of cash.
Yeah, and then if the injuries to those players too, like you probably don't have enough trades this week to trade him out at all.
Very luxury, very very luxury if you're able to sell Purdue.
But yeah, another player I want to talk about at this kind of the same price as Tom Jenkins was.
Yeah.
He came back with a 70 there. I did hold him, but now dropped to the bench. I think there could maybe be a late game switch with him coming back in the centers where he doesn't score as well, I believe.
No, he scores better at center for sure.
Well,
than he has on the wing this year. That's been the curse for sure.
Yeah. But now if a break even to 12, would you be tempted to hold Thomas Jenkins if you still held him all week? Because he does play around 12 too.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big decision. I want to hold him, but if he's playing on the bench this week, it makes it really hard because most likely he comes on and he maybe plays 20 to 30 minutes off the bench because Garner was just so good in defense last week. And he obviously benefited from Garner being so good last week because he was on the end of a lot of tries, Jenkins. So I want to say hold, but I just got a gut feeling that he might not get any minutes and he might just sit on the bench. Actually, it might be better if he just sits on the bench and gets no minutes, to be honest, and gets a 0 score because at least then his price won't fluctuate, right? So another luxury trade, I think, but I don't hate selling him.
He could even come in at fullback for that round 12 game if Edwards is to go. Unlikely, but if he is, and it could be very interesting at fullback. I know he only scored at 25 there, but he looked good there, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of Jenkins. He's kind of been a Mr. Fix-It type player for Ivan in the backs there. He's just kind of filled a role when he's needed to, just because of all the injuries they've had. So it's hard to know what the thinking is for him off the bench. I honestly this week I don't think I'll have a choice and I'll have to hold him because of the injuries that I have. But ideally, I think if you're able to sell him, I feel like most coaches would.
I do like his round 12 wing fullback cover though.
It's just that he only scored like 20 as a winger fullback in the last couple of weeks. And even last week, the only reason he scored well was because of the amount of opportunities he was getting through Ghana. So yeah, it's a hard one. It's definitely a hard one, and I don't hate it either way.
Yeah. And now with Jaden Campbell back, you could see maybe a little bit of the AJ Brimson scores fall off here. Went at 28 with 438 kick meters there. Do you think AJ's time is done at 518K? It's time to sell him. Doesn't play round 12. And I know he's given up the fullback spot. Do you think, I don't think this is going to happen, but do you think he has any chance of playing fullback for Queensland?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he hasn't showed a good enough form without Campbell to be at fullback. I don't think he'll still probably have some kick meters this week, just because it's the first game back for Campbell, and because Campbell's coming back a bit earlier than expected as well. So I assume there's still probably some lingering symptoms there. But I kind of agree with you. I think Brimson, he's going to lose a lot of stats. I think actually it might be interesting to see. Do you want to check his? If you can put it just to this season, those stats, and check what his scores with and without Campbell I would assume that his scores with Campbell were worse than
Average
without.
of 39.4 with Campbell, 35.3 without.
Oh, okay, so he's
But
played better with Campbell. There
that
you
comes
go.
with a double, a try, and a try in those
Yeah, okay. All the
round
tries have
four,
been in
five, and
those
six
games.
clashes.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
And
Yeah, I still think he's a sell. Anyway, don't trust him.
yeah,
Don't trust
I
the
still
Titans at
do.
all.
I think again a break even a 44 too. Like he'll get lucky to hit that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and doesn't play round 12.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be a sell by round 12 anyway. So yeah.
I got a question about Jerome Hughes in our page at 544K, back with a 40, a 46, a 41, a 40. She's got a lot of 40s now, but doing a lot of kicking. And with Munster maybe going, they don't play 12 or 15, which isn't incredible for them. But with Munster maybe not playing with playing Origin, do you think Hughes could overtake this team and be back to the gun we knew he was last year? Like he opened up at 825K to start the season.
Yeah, well, you said it yourself there. He doesn't play the Origin games anyway.
Yeah,
The Storm are on a bye, so I don't think it's worth it. I've put him on our watch list through our Patreon just as a player to keep an eye on to see how it goes, because Munster goes down with another injury and Hughes has to take over this team. It's an easy half buy there, but I think in the short term you're not really looking to buy him. It looks like he's kind of settled into that kind of mid 40s averaging player, and his price is there as well. So
which is kind of
yeah,
where he has been his whole career. Like I think he
exactly.
had that
Yeah.
anomaly season with no Munster wear, which was last year where he went off.
Yeah, exactly. He needs the full control in the halves to be a
Yeah,
gun. Yeah.
but yeah, and oh yeah, so one more to watch, but a player that I am getting more and more happy to sell as more and more weeks go on is
Yeah.
Pappenhausen. Doesn't play 12 or 15 and probably to me looks peaked out and priced, but he has a goal kicking. He probably would have gotten a 50 against the Rabbitohs if it wasn't for that sin bin. But how the hell did he miss that field goal?
Yeah, pretty crazy. I've been kind of saying this because Josh has been talking up Pappenhausen for the last couple of weeks. Even when Meany came back, he was still talking him up as a player you've got to have. He's excellent on the field. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not translating to the fantasy stats that it used to translate to for Pappenhausen. So I've been one to I've been completely off him, to be honest. I've been telling people not to go near him because there's just so many better options than
Yeah,
Pappenhausen. So yeah, he's been unlucky. Like if you look at his scores, he's getting tries and plenty of goals and plenty of meters. It's just not translating to great scores. Like his stats look so good, and yet the scores don't. It's kind of surprising.
yeah, and I do think with them not playing 12 and 15, you need that kind of keeper fullback you can put there. And I do think that he has got in the 50s and the 70s, but he needs to go nuclear to get those big games, doesn't he?
I think he just needs to be a bit more consistent. Like he's scored a
Yeah,
try in all of his last 3 games, but he's only hit 50 once in those games. So if he can start getting regular just 50 kind of base scores would be great, but it hasn't really shown yet. Even with goal kicking, he hasn't got enough base stats to be hitting that. So it's a bit unfortunate, but I kind of don't hate selling, if you have Pappenhausen, selling him on to like a Sharp or another one of these, winger fullback dual position options like a
yeah.
Kiraz or a Garrick or someone like that.
Tua Sharp is a very nice trade, to be honest, there, but a player that has not been spoken about at all. with such a cheap price tag for him too, if it wants to load, is Latrell. You see he's gone quite a low season this year, but back from suspension this week, playing a fullback, 700k, probably does play Origin.
You'd assume he's at center, right?
Yeah,
Like they shouldn't go Turbo again, although Turbo
nah,
is awesome in Origin. But I feel like Latrell, you put him in the centers pretty much next to Crichton, and yeah, away you go.
yeah. But would you be entitled to go Pappenhausen to Latrell as a pod play? Say he doesn't play Origin, you get him for around 15 and 18, and you probably get some very good scores there. Will probably drop maybe another 30 to K this week, but he's a proven gun, and like he's another player that I think like what he can do when he's playing well.
Yeah, I think you wait to post round 12. I think 13 is probably the best time to get him because he'll drop a bit over the next 2 weeks. I don't think there's a way he hits over 77 this week unless the Bunnies turn into just a superstar team like Humphrey's returning and all of a sudden they're a crack team. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think round 13 onwards probably looks like the prime time to buy him so long as he's not selected in Origin is the caveat to that because yeah, at 700k he's still got a bit of cash to lose for sure.
And everyone knows what Latrell Mitchell can do too. Like,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
if you can get Latrell for 650k,
You're
you
doing
laugh.
it. Yeah, exactly. You're doing it every week.
Yeah. And that'll be their last major buy week there. But a guy that I've been ultra impressed with since owning him this season is Scott Drinkwater. He's doing absolutely everything these for those Cowboys. And the thing that stood out to me is that try Avery got. That was an
Yep.
incredible tackle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was unreal.
yeah,
I can believe it.
I think he's been the informed fullback in the sea over this year. He won't play Origin. He's got goal kicking. He doesn't play round 12, but plays round 15 and 18. Do you have any interest in Scott Drinkwater at all as a buy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do. I just don't think I can bring him in now that it's before round 12 and he doesn't play that round. I think
Yeah.
I've got to wait till post round 12, which is going to hurt, right? He's expensive. So he's not going to be less than 700k unless he has a game where he gets concussed or something like that. So unfortunately, you want him, but at 700k is really hard to get in. I think I'd lean towards getting Sharp over Drinkwater this week just because he plays round 12. But I think Drinkwater over the course of the season will be the better option.
And the break even of 31 too, which is really, really handy there.
Yeah, exactly. If you've already got him, you're cheering.
Yeah. But then another player that does play round 12 and is arguably underpriced is Dylan Edwards at 634k there.
Yeah.
That 27 is stinky though. Wow.
Yeah, he's another player that's on my watch list. I just can't pull the trigger on him until you see some consistency out of the Panthers. Not even Dylan Edwards, just out of the Panthers in general. I think he'll be great over the Origin period if he's not selected and all the Panthers players are out. But I just don't think he's a prospect you can consider buying at the moment.
He had that one really good game against the Roosters where they won, and you'd expect this to kind of be the game that Edwards goes well. And I think for him this is where his floor goes. That he runs the ball a lot and he gets a lot of tackle busts, but he's a fullback that he does a lot, but he doesn't really score many tries or get many try assists.
Yeah.
Which is where his kind of floor comes in there. But one last fullback that could be extremely interesting if he does not play Origin, as again seems to be the season of the falling guns that we all want to make money back. But
exactly.
Tom Trbojevic, if he doesn't play Origin, he could be a really interesting option. Has been so up and down though, like he's done so many times. For us, everyone just wants 20. Is it 2021 or 2022 turbo?
Oh, 2021 turbo. I want that back for sure.
Everyone just wants 2021 turbo back. But at 550k for a wing fullback that plays all three major buy rounds, and the Eagles aren't getting spoken about very much for someone that does play all three major buy rounds.
Yep.
There, but do you have any interest in him at all? Just filling a spot in your wing fullbacks and probably taking the cash loss while there's going to be cash rises to come.
Yeah, he's another player that I'm very, very much similar to Ponga. That I'm like next week, if he scores like a 50 this week or a 60 this week, he'll still drop a little bit in cash because of that 66 break even, and then will be primed to buy. I think he's another player that you just can't really pass up at that price, right? Like it's so enticing. The only issue is he's just so injury prone. Like that's the main thing with Turbo. But you know what you get out of him. You can get huge scores from him on any odd week. So I don't hate it as an option. I'll probably do it, to be honest, because it's a bit of a potty option and my team's struggling. So yeah, if he's still like 2 to 3% owned, I think I'd pull the trigger on him.
Yeah, I think he could be one to bring in maybe next week or at the round 12 if
If
because
he's not picked, yeah.
DCE is going to go. So he's going to have to do more in those Origin weeks when DCE is not there.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
another player from the Eagles that has not been spoken about again. I won't pull his stats up, but we say Dylan Lucas is a lock, and I was thinking Olakawatu at 620K that plays all three major buy rounds. He's got to be interesting. He has had a terrible season today, like only the two really big scores there. But do you have any interest in Olakawatu at all?
I just assume he's going to be a lock for Origin at this point. I think it makes sense that him and Gus are probably the main edges
No Hudson
in New
Young?
South Wales. I think Hudson Young will be there. I don't think he'll be starting though. I think he'll probably be off the bench.
Yeah.
Just considering his form at the moment, it just
And
makes sense that he's in
no
the team.
Liam Martin?
Whoa, that's the big one. So they've played Liam Martin as a bit of a front rower in the past, so they
Yeah.
might do that again. I don't know. They're probably the four players that are most likely.
Well, now with Preston out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Olakwatu's he's probably 90% locked in to be in Origin.
Yeah.
I think he's
And
been.
if he's not in Origin, I think he's a very good buy. But
Yeah,
I
that's the
think
thing.
he
You can't
will.
really buy into him until you know,
Yeah.
because if you buy him now, you miss all those Origin games, and
Yeah.
if he is selected, and then you also miss those buys as well. Yeah.
But Bo Fermor is one that I think could be very close to getting selected for Queensland Origin, as Jaden Sewell will be there, the guy that can't catch and win the game for the Tigers. Thank you, Jaden. But Bo's been killing it. You see that double there with that 68 and the 109 the week before. Do you think that you can also look at Bo Fermor over the Dylan Lucas with that 17 break even too?
No, I think Lucas is clear in terms of the best option over the Origin period because he won't play. Firma is a smoky to be in the team, but I don't think he's locked in by any means. But he also doesn't play around 12, so
Yeah, all right.
I think you have to choose between them. They're the same kind of player. I think you probably want Firma and Lucas by the end of the year as your centers. They're just the obvious ones to have. But for this Origin period, I think you steer towards Lucas. I mean, if you have Firma already, you're going to keep him. You're not going to be selling him at this point, but you'd like to have Lucas for sure.
The problem for me about Fermor is that if he gets moved to centers, he stinks.
Yeah, that's a big risk. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't like. Who knows when Fafita's back? But if Khaleesi Haas puts a good couple games together, Fafita comes back. There's nothing saying that because he's a good center Fermor. Like he does a job at center, but he just doesn't score well there in fantasy. So there's no thing saying that Fermor won't go into the center position.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit hard to judge week in, week out, considering the Titans kind of change their team up every week, it seems, this year. So
yeah,
it is a risk, but I think it's a calculated one that you'd probably take anyway, just because he's so good, right? If he plays in the back row, you start him. If he doesn't play in the back row, you just chuck him on your emergencies for that week.
Yeah.
It's just you want to get him at the cheapest point, so you don't have to waste all the money for the scores in the centers.
Yeah, but I think that pretty much covers most players that you could really look at. Do you have any last comments to add?
No, yeah, that's a good coverage of everyone. The only player we didn't really touch on is Garrick. Like we talked about how good the Manly buys are, and we didn't really touch on Garrick, who is probably, I think his break even's around the 50 mark, and he's at close to the cheapest he will be. I assume over the next couple of weeks.
Break even, 646K.
He's basically priced in, Garrick, if not a little underpriced. So I think Garrick's another great option for this Origin period that you can pretty much select and forget about.
He'll be really good in your wing fullback, which could be Pappenhausen straight to Garrick as a straight swap, which is a fairly good trade there.
Yeah.
But thanks for watching us, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Cheers.